Firstly, make sure your sample is tempo aligned. My sample here as reference is 88 BPM and in D major, so I want to make my project be 88 beats per minute. We want to do this because we need to figure out our starting point before we go changing the tempo and the key and all this other stuff. It's possible when you download your sample, it won't be perfectly in timed. That's not in time. Even though my sample BPM is 88 and my project is now 88, it can get a little weird. If I try to add and make additions to this now, it's going to get weird. Now, it's possible this has been notated incorrectly. Maybe this is right, and to check this in FL, I can double click on this, right click down here, and hit Detect Tempo, and select 75 to 150. So this is saying that a probable tempo is actually 100. So we want to try everything. So let me pull this up to 100. And that actually looks more aligned. And now it's a bit better. So sometimes it can get misnotated. It's entirely possible that whoever recorded this sample recorded without a metronome and just kind of guessed that it was 88 and notated it as such. But we just want to make sure, because if this isn't in time, again, trying to add drums to this, you're going to be wondering why it's not working. Just keep it simple, keep it easy. Next, we're still not perfectly in time. And while I could left click, hold Alt, and drag to make this transient more line up with where it should be, my intro is now kind of chopped off. And it's not really going to work. The solution here is to go again, double click on this, right click, edit in Time Warper, and it's just going to be easier if you then try and make this line up as best as possible by moving these flags around. It's not ideal, obviously. Preferably, you'd have the sample already be in time, and this wouldn't be such a big deal, but in rare instances like this where it's been misnotated and everything's all weird, this is the best way to do it. You want to spend as much time in the cleaning up and the correction phase to make sure that you actually can work with this sample. And not every sample will be perfect. This sample is from Sample Focus, one of those free sites, and so anyone can post a sample, and while some of them may be awesome to work with, they're not necessarily going to be professionally in time or anything like that. So let's test this now with our correction. That's a little better. Yeah, that's good. That's a little weird, but there's going to be other stuff around it, so it doesn't really matter. This part's a little early, so I wanna try and keep the natural, especially on this sample, which is acoustic. If you have a synth sample, it doesn't really matter. That just feels better. And now I can put this in, and it should be more tempo aligned. Now it's on beat. There's not that much of the weird shifting around that there was on the other ones. It now covers the proper 8 bars that it is. Now we're ready to actually sample this and actually get some good stuff out of it. Something that people occasionally have a problem with when it comes to sampling is, well, I don't know what to do now. I've tempo matched it, but how am I going to take this anywhere? And one thing that you can do is you need to realize you're not limited to what this is. For example, this sample is in D major, and it's at 100 BPM, not 88. But it doesn't have to be. You can come up here to this master cent and move it up 100 or 200 cents and hear how the whole project sounds when things are kind of warped around a little bit. You can also double click on your sample, and over here on pitch, you want to set this mode to stretch so that it'll actually retune itself, and you can pull this up. And now it's in a different key. So you can change the key. I can pitch it down 6. I can pitch it up 6. Depending on the sample, it may be better to go up or down. Typically with samples in higher registers like this, going up is going to be handled a lot better than going down. And I really like that. So the question is now, what key am I in? Because if I'm going to do additions to this, I need to know what that is. So I'm in D, and I've gone up 6 semitones. Well, a semitone, 1 semitone, is just a half step or 1 note. So we can calculate this by seeing that D up 6 notes. If we go to our piano roll, that would be 1, counting on D, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. We're in G major now. And we can confirm this by pulling in something like FL Keys, a very basic plugin, and we're just going to hammer on G the whole time the sample is playing. And if we're correct about what key we're in, this should sound fine. It doesn't sound horrible, which means that it's pretty probable that we're correct. We'll find out as we start writing stuff in, but that's the best way to check. Just take the tonic or the first note of whatever key you think you're in, play it in a high octave over your sample just to confirm. Now, if you're really unsure and you can't figure out what your sample is as far as its key, the next best solution is to go to Google and look up Song Key and BPM Finder from TuneBat. And using this, we can drag our sample into here, and it will analyze what it is, and it'll give us a BPM. So we can see that this actually agrees with FL Studio's assessment that the sample is 100, sort of close to 101 BPM, whereas it's labeled as 88, and we've confirmed that the original key is in D major. I've often found this website is the best way to double or triple check, just to make sure you're not hearing stuff or something's not working. Why? The only downside to this is that it might give you an enharmonic equivalent in the key readout. Now, what is that? An enharmonic equivalent is basically that instead of this saying D major, it would tell you the parallel minor, essentially, which in this case would be B minor. So it might tell you that this is in B minor instead of D major, and that'll still work, but if you're going to have vocals or if it's a vocal sample, it may sound a little bit weird. So just be careful that you double check either the relative major, relative minor. Both are technically correct. It just depends on what's going on around it. The next thing that happens with sampling is a lot of people get to this point and they don't really know what to do. Like, I figured out that I like the sample changed, I've changed the key. How do I actually get additions and structure out of this? So I like this current sample, and I personally wouldn't really change much. I like this sort of slow, methodical playing, but for the sake of this video, I'm going to try and change this pretty radically. So let's say I want this to be a very strummy sample. I don't want it to be this sort of slow melancholic. I want to play it in double time, basically. Instead of loading up Slice X or loading up a sampler and trying to trigger it, and it can get all weird if I load this into Slice X and it's all cut up. No. Keep it simple. Just turn off your typing keyboard to piano by untoggling this switch. Look at your sample after it's been lined up. Hit C and cut on all of the chords that are coming here. So everywhere we see a transient, which is just a little peak in audio, we're going to make a cut. And this is going to give us a set of chords and things to work with. Kind of like if you were cutting tape, physical tape in the old days. And now we have everything cut out with our sample. You can kind of checkerboard it like this so that you don't accidentally copy over a repeat if you want to keep things organized. But now, what I can do is I can chop this and hit Control B to double time it and fade it. And we start getting a different sound. Now I kind of want this to be a little bit faster. And now I'm getting somewhere, and I can just keep this going, and I can pull this up, and I can lower this down and make it fade. This has a little bit of a rise up to it, which is going to be causing a little bit of a tempo problem, but we can correct it. Now I like this, so I can go ahead and make this be double time as well. Control B is what I'm using to copy this over. And now I can do stuff like this. Bum, bum, bum. And I can do this. And then I can loop it back because I want this to be a 4-bar loop. And I want this to stutter. And now I have my new sample, and I don't even need to use the rest of these. You can if you want to, but I'm going to go ahead and mute these because I don't really want to bother making this more complicated. And now I have a new loop that I can use. So I want to make sure that that's a good loop, and that sounds all right to me. I might add a fade here. And now the question becomes, how do I expand on this? So, first rule of thumb, music is kind of like a language. And since we know our key is G, as long as we're speaking the same language as our sample, i.e. we write in G in some capacity, we'll have a pretty easy time making additions. Now, since I don't know the chords of this sample, I could figure it out. Basically, the way to do that is to go to here. We can lock this to G major so we don't have to worry about making a wrong note or a mistake. And put a note down in the bass and just kind of play until it works. Nope, that's not right. Nope. 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 I don't think I'm right with this being in G, and that's okay. So the best way that I'm going to do this, it's possible that we're actually, because of how this is warped, that we're actually in G sharp. Let's give that a go. Yeah, we're in G sharp. I was off by 1. No, that's not going to work. So now I've got this sort of figured out. Now it doesn't matter what I do that I figured out the space out. I can turn all of these into triads, and I can space out the piano so it's not quite so densely packed the way that it is right now. Now I've got a loop going. Now I can just keep adding. As long as I'm in G sharp / A flat major and I keep in 4/4 like this sample is, I really can't mess this up So I can add little flourishes like this. And I can just copy this over. And I can kind of just keep copying this. I just want as much layers as possible. Now I can pull up, like, you know, an 808 if I just want, like, this to be a hip-hop sort of 808 affair. And I can start playing with these bass notes until they work. Make this a little higher. Bottom note I used here was a C. Let's try that. Just copy these over. It still works. We're still doing good stuff. Now I can load up, I don't know. Do I want more piano? Do I want a synth? Let's load a synthesizer and just have a little blip playing on the offbeats of everything. Label this to be a pluck. I'm gonna route everything in my mixer now, and I'll do some brief sound designing to make this fit in. So now I've got a good loop on top of everything going here. Good stuff. I can delete these because I don't think I'm going to need them. And now I need to put a drum loop in. So I'm going to keep building this out until I have a pretty loud, pretty big sort of loop going on here. Because I want to save as much time as possible later when arranging it. I don't want to have to come back and think about each section. I want to kind of create my arrangement in this layer while I'm putting stuff in. So there's my crash transition, because this is going to theoretically be the loudest part. I'm imagining a sort of hip-hop thing with this, so now I just need to go and dig up a hip-hop drum kit of some kind. Cymatics Cobra is pretty good. This is a free one. I'll find me some kicks. Yeah, those will layer good nicely. And then I can come in and find a snare. Sure, we can do this. And then I want a rim shot because it's hip hop. I want those offbeats. Yeah, that'll be good. Nope, I don't want a bass drum. That's annoying. And then I'm going to need a hi-hat of some kind. Sure, why not? Label everything. Remember to stay organized while you're doing this. That open hat looks pretty good. And now I just want to make a generic sort of hip-hop loop, because since the sample is in 4/4, it doesn't matter really what we do here. As long as the kick is on the 1 and the 3 and the snare is on the 2 and the 4, you can't mess it up in a way that's going to make it sound weird. Now I want to add some offbeats. We add our hi-hat. I'll make this go a little... We'll add our open hat. Now we've got our part. Control L, everything goes on the mixer. Kicks in mono. We start doing some basic leveling and panning all of our stuff correctly. all that good stuff. Now I've got a loop. Now all I got to do, Control B on all of these. Now all I have to do is Control B on this, make this ending loop unique, delete this other one, copy over, and add a transition fill. I can add a little new offbeat just in order to have things look like they're changing. I'm trying to trick the listener into thinking change is happening, even though I'm really doing as little work as possible here. So I can add these little pitch walks down. Make sure this is set to stretch if you're going to retune it in this MIDI file. Now I've got a nice transitional loop that's going to happen at the end of every single spot. Now we're making progress. To keep this even simpler, delete this pattern. Click on pattern 1 over here in your pattern arrangement view. Right click and hit split by channel. This is going to split all of your stuff into a separate pattern like this. And the way I'm separating this out is by left clicking and then holding control. And that means that I can move things up and down and it won't go side to side and be annoying. So I can easily pull stuff out and move and rearrange without having to worry about it. Now I have all of my arranged elements separated. So if I want to make this, a beat that someone might be able to rap to, or maybe I'm just doing a remix or something, I have options because I can pull in my retimed original sample and have this be the intro. I only used half of it, so I can cut it off here. Now I can introduce my pluck here in this intro and my felt piano here. So this can come in on bar 5, this can come in on bar 5 as well. And now what I can do is I can route this new sample and put something like a tape stop here, automate it to be play, 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 and then right here on this last note, it kind of fades out and does a little stop. I want to make this a really slow stop time. Really slow. And then we can transition to our new chopped sample over here. Need to make sure this comes back. I need this stop time to be this restart time to be extremely short. We start getting an arrangement going. I can move my drum loop over here, make it unique, and then I can get rid of the kicks and only keep the top and get rid of this open hat, so it's like an intro. Copy this over, introduce the bass, then I can cut everything else out here, cut the drums, and then I can take my loop here and just shave off the beginning so it's just the transition. And then I just have to bring in everything with my crash symbol. Move this over. Control B, Control B. Now I can have the sample come in. And then we can have a breakdown section where our OG little loop comes back here from the beginning. We bring our crashes over just to signal the transition. I start bringing my tape stop back. And I can reuse this effect as a transition piece. And now I'm going to be super lazy, and some people may not like this, but it's a sample track, especially if you're talking hip hop. I mean, this is just the easiest thing to do. Grab our whole thing, Control B, add a crash transition here, and then loop this part like this, and have it run again. So you have our breakdown. And now we're done. Now, this obviously wouldn't be labeled completely done because there's some places that you could put variation. Off the top of my head, I would want here a new element to come in, so I would notate this with an empty pattern and say like, oh, I want a vocal call here, just so that later, you know, I remember to put this here. I might say, oh, I really want a second guitar melody to come in here to kind of add variation. So I can mark this and sort of pre-plan all the patterns so that when I add it, it just slots into all the spots. And then I can copy this over to this part because I already know that's what I want there. And I might change this to be an outro, or I might have another outro, you know, who knows. But this right here, as far as making a sampled beat is concerned, is going to be the best way for you to get the arrangement down, because now you can send this out to rappers, singers, whatever, and there's enough variation and structure that they can work with it, and you'll have mains in here from your vocalist or whatever after a little bit of time. And then once you have those and they're lined up and all nice and processed, you can come in and put your additions in. You can take stuff out. You can add beat emphasis, beat dropouts, more tape stops. It doesn't matter. So make sampling easy. Don't load it into a Slice X. Don't try to be fancy with samplers and ray trigging. Put it on your timeline, chop it up, make additions, check the key, check the time signature, double check with the TuneBat thing, double check with FL Studio. Make it easy. Good luck.